Hello guys, welcome back to another weekly roundup. I just thought I'd do a second version because the first one I done on Friday, I kind of I ruined it by screen sharing something I wasn't screen sharing. I was showing the people the videos and no one's seen anything, so I thought I'll just delete that one. I'll just start again because I want to talk about the subject of chemtrails. These chemtrails. It does tie in with flat Earth. It's another rabbit hole for flat earthers. It's a rabbit hole I was down before flat Earth, well before flat Earth. And it's an elaborate Psyop, chemtrail. Just the name itself, chemtrail. It's a Psyop. And I got in it, I really got deep in it, and I was in it for about 3 or 4 years, and I was taking photographs. I started a group on Facebook. I've got over 3,000 images on Facebook, persistent contrails turning into clouds. And there's no doubt, guys, that these trails persist and turn into haze and cloud. I see that. But what I don't see is chemicals being sprayed on us. Sprayed. You keep hearing this as well, that we're being sprayed. And it's, to me, I think the chemtrail movement is more dangerous to the individual who's saying chemtrails than flat Earth. Because fair enough, flat Earth, there is a sort of rebellious side to flat Earth where it's sounding like they want to bring down the schools, the governments, the establishment. But the chemtrail Psyop is more of accusations. You're accusing the government of spraying your kids, you're spraying your family, killing them, spraying everyone. And I found this hype in a lot of groups on Facebook. I was in quite a few groups, and it had all the same patterns of a Psyop, just like flat Earth, all the same characters. And to accuse the government of spraying you and poisoning you you're going to need evidence. It's like if you accuse anybody of anything, if you accuse your next door neighbour of doing something, you're going to need some evidence. And this is where I started to fall into brick walls with chemtrails, was with the evidence. Like I said, I was well into the chemtrail stuff before this, and it turned into geoengineering because I thought that was a better term for it. But even geoengineering is not a proper term for what's happening. It's persistent contrails creating haze in the sky. Because geoengineering implies there's a deliberate weather modification. And I don't think it's deliberate. Because I think it's more connected. If you look in the southern hemispheres, honestly, guys, go into any chemtrail groups on Facebook and look through the images and try and find any images that are from the southern hemisphere. There's hardly any. They're a lot less popular than the northern hemisphere. So I connected it to water vapor. I started looking at satellite imagery, and for some reason, when the moon's in the sky in the northern hemisphere, all the water vapor gets pulled in the atmosphere, and persistent contrails persist longer. And you see them during the day. When you see lots of trails during the day, usually the moon's on that side of the earth. It seems to pull, just like it pulls the tides on the oceans. It seems to pull the moisture in the atmosphere as well. There's definitely a magnetic, something to do with the moon pulling the moisture in the atmosphere. And this is something connected to persistent contrails. But there's no chemicals, barium, strontium. I looked into this. And these are heavy metals that would destroy any plane exhaust if you tried to put through an exhaust, because there's no nozzles for spraying. There was one video that was going around the Chemtrail group, and it was this emergency landing, because this plane had to make an emergency landing at a certain airport. It had too much fuel, and it had to release fuel to land, because if they've got too much fuel on board, the plane could explode whilst landing. So they've got a wee nozzle on the wing, and they released the fuel and then landed. And this was getting passed around all the chemtrail groups like it was, look, they're spraying us, they're spraying us. One video, just like the lunar eclipse garbage in Flat Earth. It's like this one video, and they try and put all their eggs into this one basket. And it was the same with the chemtrail group, with this spraying one, this nozzle spraying fuel. And it was already debunked within a couple of weeks, but the chemtrail movement ran with it. And it's like Flat Earth with a lunar wave. I seen a tiny bit of Nathan Oakley's stuff the night, and they had the Lyle High with this lunar wave. And this guy spent thousands of pounds on equipment looking at the moon and stuff. And he's still lost. He's still lost. He still doesn't understand that the moon's a solid object up there. Anyway, he's been piping on about the lunar eclipse. They're digging out the old crow videos of the lunar eclipse. They had Carly Sunshine. She's going to be at this conference. She was on Nathan Oakley's, and she was trying to explain away the lunar eclipse with water going down a vortex, a shadow of a vortex in water. So they were trying to say that the sky's water again. It's ridiculous. There is a lot of water in the atmosphere. That's why there's lots of persistent contrails. There's a lot of planes nowadays. That's another thing. And if people tell you that they're spraying us with chemicals, start looking for where they spray. I've seen them spray over the Scottish Parliament, over Westminster, the Washington, the White House, all over these big, the elites. They're spraying over them as well. And I've said this to the chemtrail group. I said, well, why are they spraying all over themselves and their own land and their own people? Oh, they've got a pill. They just explain it away with a pill. Oh, the elites have got a pill they take that makes them immune from barium and strontium. And I was like, wait a minute here. This is starting to sound stupid. This is starting to sound fishy. And the more I was trying to dig into the truth, the more shit would pop up. Like chem webs. If you get deep enough into the chemtrail movement, they start bringing out this thing called chem webs. Apparently the planes are firing chem webs, like these nano spiders creating webs. And oh wow, it started getting really weird. And then the new age started coming into the chemtrail movement, where people were coming in with cloud busters, orgone energy, all this stuff, orgone pyramids. They were trying to sell the orgone pyramids in my Facebook group. I had to keep kicking them. These orgone pyramids were busting clouds. And then after a while, I realized none of these people were interested in the truth, in the chemtrail movement. None of them were interested in the truth. They're all trying to sell something, or they're all trying to push their own version of reality. And fear-mongering was massive in the chemtrail movement. Actually, the Guardian newspaper done a piece on the chemtrail movement about 4 years ago. And they done an investigation into Morgellons disease, this so-called disease created by chemtrails. This journalist done this investigation on it, and he found that the Morgellons disease was like the first disease you could catch through your computer. And I'm starting to think, is the flat earth like this? Is it like what Five Red Pears was saying? A mind disease? Is the flat earth a mind disease? Just like the Morgellons. And this is what this is, you can maybe search up this Guardian article. You will find it, because I read it in the past. And he found that the people that believed in the Morgellons and the chemtrails, they were all the same sort of people. They were all hypochondriacs. They're all carrying this victim mentality and gullible, very gullible people. Get hooked onto these conspiracies, these like lizard people and stuff like that. These are the kind of people that are gullible, people that get hypnotized. I find they kind of people quite gullible. But this Morgellons disease, because people are finding threads, or look, there's threads coming out my leg and stuff like that, because they could order little microscopes online. They could see these little threads, and it was just cotton from their sock. But nobody in the past has been looking at their legs with microscopes. Like your belly button fluff, and you got to look at your belly button fluff with a microscope. Oh, Morgellons! There's these fibers coming out my stomach. So it was getting ridiculous. So the Morgellons was actually, the people who thought they had Morgellons were actually starting to show certain symptoms as well. They were giving themselves depression, and they were scared to go outside. And because of this chemtrail psyop, it was so fearful. So when people seen these white crosses in the sky, they were getting their gas masks out, and it was pushing them. It's shocking, the chemtrail. It was more intricate than the flat Earth. The flat Earth is becoming more elaborate with its rabbit holes, but the chemtrail one has got so many, and it's got the New Age involved, and it's the same people. This Skywatcher, these Geoengineering Watch UK, Dame Wigginton, Max Bliss. Max Bliss was one of the top British guys about the chemtrail movement, and I was exchanging comments. I was trolling him a wee bit, because he was out in his garden with copper pipes, crystals, saying he could bust clouds, and I was asking for, where's the evidence of this? And so I started doing my own investigation. I bought a massive lens from my Canon, a 300mm. I stay in a city, so I see the planes coming in to Edinburgh Airport, and I was zooming in, and I could see the contrails, the persistent contrail coming out the back. And I would never see the contrail attached to the wing. Never see it attached to the wing. There was always this space between the contrail and the engine of the plane. So I could never see them ever spraying. So every time I heard someone say, they're spraying us, I'm like, well, show me some evidence of them spraying. And they keep showing that one video of this plane dumping out fuel. And there's no doubt, guys, I know that they can cloud seed. Cloud seeding's is known. I know that they know how to cloud seed, but this isn't cloud seeding. I see this every day, and it's not cloud seeding. It is creating clouds. There's no doubt it's creating clouds, but whether it's deliberate or not, I'm not sure. I don't think so. And whether it's chemicals and they're trying to poison us or not, that's what I was trying to say in my last video, guys. Motivation. Behind everything, there's motivation usually. In the chemtrails, I was thinking, why would they want to spray us, spend all this time, money, effort spraying us and trying to keep it all big secret? We're talking about the food, how the food's bad for us, how we're drinking water's bad for us, fizzy juice, all these things. They can put chemicals in, smoking, all these vaporizer cigarettes, all these vapes. It's like they could easily put these chemicals in other things. So why would they go up spraying? They could put it in our water. They could put it in our food. Why would they be spraying over their own buildings and over their own parliaments, and then to explain it away with a pill? It's just not good enough, guys. And I'm just warning you now, because you've probably heard, and I heard Jeff Stewart, he came out in a hangout and said, flat earth is a psyop. And then he went on to say, chemtrails this, chemtrails that, and chemtrails are poisonous. And It's the same with the guy on Dell's show. I watched Dell's show the other night there, and for once, I think Dell realised that he's sounding extreme. Like, nobody cares about believing in flat Earth, guys. I don't care about people who believe in flat Earth. Believe in what you want. But when you sit there and you start all this stuff, like people who believe in the globe are cult followers and they're agents, and you're sitting there and you know you're not an agent, and it's just, you know, they're lying. You just know they're misrepresenting you and lying. And this is when I've got to say something back, and this is where the back and forth comes from with me and Dell as well, because he's lying, saying that I'm an agent and this and that, and we could be getting paid by the elites. And no, when somebody's sitting there lying about you, you're going to say something back. But I think Dell took the hint with a few people saying about his aggression and the way it looks from the outside. Because anybody looking from the outside, that's like Bob and journalism. If people from the outside that have got nothing to do with flat Earth, just the common person, looked in and seen Bob and journalism and Patricia Steer and just talking about flat Earth and all these weird things, even though it's a bit weird and culty, they don't seem to be doing any harm. But when you look over at Dell's show and the chat and the way that the people act in the chat and in my comments, and the way Dell is with his aggression and his language and just his overall mannerisms, it comes across as really aggressive and extreme, like an extremist. Like when I see Dell, like I can't see the difference. Say, like this Islamic extremist sitting in a cave in Afghanistan going, Allah, Allah, Akbar, Allah, Akbar. Like when I see Dell, if you can just put those Arabic words in his mouth or whatever, like he'd be just the same. It's like, and he's preaching a religion. Dell is preaching a religion practically, because it's not reality. It's not reality. It's not objective truth, what he's preaching. So it's just a religion, really. And he sounds like a religious extremist talking about activism. It's all right to believe in stuff, but when you say activism, take to the streets, point these people out, this is getting burned. Ken, it sounds like burn the books. It sounds like Nazi time, or I don't know. It doesn't sound normal from an outsider looking in. Like I said, we're all desensitized now. All these crazy flat earthers just seem like normal now. At first we were shocked. We were like, what? But now we're sort of desensitized to them. But new people coming in and listening to this would be quite shocked about Dell's, just his vitriol and his persona, and how many people he's attracting, how many people are willing to like just obey every command he says. He's got followers, there's no doubt. It's turning into a cult over there. And I think he realised that, and he's toned it down. And to be honest, Dell in that last hangout was the less irritating. So it's just been weird in flat Earth. There's been no evidences for flat Earth. P. Mars has got a new channel, by the way. I mentioned it in my last video, but I deleted it, but I'll mention it again. It's called $500. The number 4, $500 for flat Earth evidence. So check out P. Mars's new channel. Anyway, back to the chemtrail stuff. So I started thinking, well, what's the motive for chemtrails? If they're not spraying us, and I can see it happening, I still see them persisting and turning into haze. I'm thinking, well, they're not spraying us with poison, but what is it? Because it must be something. They're happening. Is it just accident, or is there a reason? So I started looking for motivations why maybe they would want to create haze in the sky. And it got me looking into like the solar radiation management. You probably have heard this as well, SRM, solar radiation management. And it's like this plan it's like an albino effect, or it reflects the sunlight back into the atmosphere. If they create a haze, when the sun hits, it reflects back up. Maybe I thought that we were exposed to harmful ultraviolets. What if, let's just say, what if the powers that be didn't want to alarm us and tell us that the atmosphere's wrecked and that maybe we are exposed to infrared, and maybe are at danger, and they're maybe creating a haze to protect us. I was even thinking like that. I heard so much from the chemtrail movement about them want to kill us. I thought, well, let's play devil's advocate. What if they're trying to protect us? So I started looking into the solar radiation management, and even then, the amount of trails they would have to create. And then there was another thing that popped up, and it was the CMEs, coronal mass ejections from the sun. And I started looking into the sun for months and months and months. I was looking at there's satellites that are constantly looking at the sun, and there's people looking at the sun. You can look at the sunspots yourself with the right equipment. I think what they used to do was something like on a piece of cardboard in the olden days to look at the black spots. There's black spots on the sun, and you can sometimes see them come all the way around the sun, the black spots. Well, these black spots, this is where CMEs come from. These are where they're born. And sometimes these CMEs explode, and they're hundreds of times the size of the sun, our Earth. These explosions. And they create like loops, but they get pulled back in again. Sometimes pieces of them escape. And this is when, if they're coming towards Earth, Earth has a magnetosphere that protects it. So this magnetosphere, this shield around Earth, gets hit by the solar energy, or the CME. And sometimes the bands of the magnetosphere peel off. And sometimes solar energy gets in. And it gets in the north and the south poles. And that's what creates the aurora lights, the northern lights, and the Australis borealis, or the Australis borealis, the southern lights. So both poles have both sets of lights coming in when there's heavy CMEs, and they were matching. When I was looking at the sun, they were saying there's a big CME coming towards Earth, and then within a couple of days or a day or so, eventually you would see the effects of it. And it creates pressure systems in our atmosphere, like it pushes against our atmosphere. It plays with our weather, all this as well. They're still not entirely sure how it's totally connected, but it's something to do with our weather as well, these CMEs from the sun. And just looking at the sun and the sunspots and the CMEs was enough for me to know, even before I looked at flat Earth, that the sun was not just a disk or just a hologram or Pac-Man across the sky. I knew quite a lot about the sun and the magnetosphere. And that's the thing about flat Earth. If it's flat, or if it's an infinite plane, where does a magnetosphere come into it? If it's infinite, where does a magnetic field come into play? It must be an object in space to have a magnetic field. It must be an object suspended in space. It can't be an infinite plane. No way. I think you have to rule out infinite plane, because a magnetic field doesn't work on an infinite plane. This is what actually makes our planet more special than all the other planets in the solar system, that we have this powerful magnetic field. And apparently it's created by the iron core in the center of Earth. And this is why I think we are spinning. I know that Earth's a globe or sphere shape. I've came to that conclusion solidly. I know that now. I don't believe it. I know it. But whether we were spinning or not, well, that was a different question. That was a few things I looked into. And when you look at life and just the way everything has to be moving, everything has to move. I think if Earth stopped, everything would stop. Life would stop. Things would become stagnant. Like the seas, the air, everything would just, I think for life to happen, we have to turn. And when you look up at the stars, and you're either spinning and those stars look like they're turning, or the stars are turning on some sort of dome. And to me, it seems awfully selfish to think that everything's spinning around you. So these are the kind of things that make me think that it's a ball and we're spinning. But the sun and the magnetic field. Guys, you need to look into the northern lights and the southern lights, magnetic fields, and how do these things work on a flat Earth. I looked deeply into the northern lights. I actually looked at the point where they've got a atmospheric heater called ISCAT, EISCAT, in Norway. It's an atmospheric heater, and it can heat the ions in the atmosphere, and they create northern lights. But I was thinking, well, how far back have the northern lights been known? They must be writing in Viking history, and sure enough, they've been mentioned. And the Aborigines, I'm sure, have got drawings, like cave painting sort of type things of the northern lights. So it's not like it's a new phenomena. I think they've been known for a while, the northern and southern lights, and these are created because of this massive energy hitting our magnetic field. And the flat Earth never really have any answers for the magnetic field. They don't. Just like they were trying to explain away the lunar eclipse with a vortex creating some kind of shadow. It's just plain wrong. Anyway, guys, like I said, don't get wrapped up in this chemtrail movement. Of course, there's trails in the sky. And it kind of reminded me of the Mandela effect when they were talking about these things back in the past. And they were saying, remember, we never seen these trails as a kid. We never seen them. And fair enough, maybe air travel weren't as frequent back in the day. But those trails still existed in Scotland. Because I can remember playing football and seeing like a white cross in the sky. I used to think like Scotland, and I used to get patriotic, and I used to stay up there for a while, turn into a big fat cross. So I could remember trails in the sky. But I would call them persistent contrails, and I wouldn't go around telling everybody that they're spraying chemicals on us. Because if you got a knock on the door for the authorities, they're going to ask you, well, where's the evidence? If you're accusing us of spraying you and your family with chemicals, because you're talking about mass genocide. If you're saying that chemtrails are spraying barium and strontium on people, you're accusing whoever these people are, the governments, the Air Force, whoever it is that you're saying it is, you're accusing them of mass genocide. So you need to be prepared to show some evidence. If you accuse anybody of mass genocide, you better show some evidence for it. And I was digging and digging, and I couldn't find any evidence. These charlatans were pulling out little ground tests, and it was just like flat Earth. It's just like flat Earth. You've got the same kind of characters in it. People that are pretending they're doing certain experiments and testing soil and testing water, and it all just comes down to nothing. This Dame Wigginton guy in the chemtrail movement, Dame Wigginton, he's Geoengineering Watch. But this guy's been calling it for the end of the world since, I think it was 2003 or 4. He started this chemtrail stuff. And he was like, weather chaos, end of the world. They use these words. They've got terms they use. It's just extreme fearmonger terms. And he was talking about end of the world in 2007 and 10 and 12. And it just went on and on and on. And as long as you got money, money, money. And it was all this pay me, pay me. You notice a lot of money is involved in these conspiracy groups, and the chemtrail movement is one of the stinky. It's got the new age. It's rank. It's a rank movement. It's full of paranoid weirdos, hypochondriacs, gullible morons. Want to go around telling people they've been sprayed with barium and strontium with no evidence. Like I said, guys, I've watched them for years. For years, since about 2013, I think my first video was of one of these things, these crosses, these trails, and they create clouds. There's no doubt they create cloud. But if anything, that cloud turns into a cloud and drifts away, or drifts into haze. Maybe it makes the day a bit duller, but when I look outside and I go for my walks, and you've seen where I live, guys, the environment I live in, does it look like it's dying? Does it look like there's people being killed by these? We see trails every day. We'd be the first to die. And like I said, you don't see these trails in the southern hemisphere. You don't see them in the southern hemisphere. Ask yourself why you don't see as many trails. And fair enough, you might see a couple in the southern hemisphere, but then they drift, they don't linger. The equator as well. The equator is quite dry. And the equator is the best for seeing the stars. I remember when I was in the Canary Islands, the stars were so clear. I think the Canary Islands are like third in the world for the best view of the stars. I think number one's Hawaii, number two is I think Chile or somewhere like that, and number three's the Canary Islands. And the sky's so dry. And fair enough, there was trails forming because for the first time for a year, I think it rained when I was there. It hardly ever rains. But when it did rain, trails were forming. So there was a connection with moisture in the air and the trails, even in the Canaries. So they do happen, but it's rarer, much rarer in the equator in the southern hemisphere for chemtrails. And it's not chemtrails, guys. Refrain from calling them chemtrails when you're speaking about them to people. Call them persistent contrails or just trails. Just talk to people, say, those trails in the sky, why do you think they're forming? But I looked deeply into it and I found it was a giant, giant rabbit hole, guys. So remember I told you, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be concerned that there's haze in the sky, because I get pissed off as well. I wake up in the morning, clear blue skies, trails, and then it's cloudy again. But it's not killing me. I can still go out and do what I'm doing. It's just not as nice. But like I said, if you go around on the internet saying to people, they're spraying us, they're this, they're that, remember, you're pushing fear-mongering and an alarmist, and you're accusing your government a genocide. Remember that, guys. So, and same way, like I was saying about Dell, he's got to remember that everything's been watched. Everything's been watched. He doesn't think he's that small a corner of YouTube that people won't start getting alarmed by what he's talking about. Because flat Earth is, in a way, anarchy. It's like if people did accept flat Earth, two things would either happen. Either one, people just wouldn't care. They'd be like, well, it's flat Earth. If it was flat, it's always been flat and nothing changes. It's flat today, but it's flat tomorrow. Like my missus, she's like, well, what if it is flat? So what? What would change? Well, nothing would change, would it? And certain people might think there'd be a worldwide revolution. But either way, it's not true. So that's that. Anyway, guys, I'll show you a few videos. I was going to give a few shout outs in my last video, and I'll remember the names: ALK and GJI45, GJW45. Cheers, guys. You were brilliant in the comments with Dell, everything else. Dell's minions, because Dell's minions can only stream like one sentence together. You can only string like a sentence, and these guys were like intellectually bullying them, and I didn't want to join in because I was like, it's like bullying. Well, it kind of looked like just picking on them, so I didn't want to go near that. But these guys, compared to Dell's comments, unbelievable. So I just want to thank everybody in the comments. If I've not replied to you, it's just I've just been so busy. It's unreal, this flat Earth, and there's so many hangouts happening as well. Anyway, like I said, I messed up my last hangout because I never screen shared, so screen share this time. I'll just show you proof that I've been watching these things for a long time. I'll give a wee shout out to the chat since there's 37 in. Cheers for coming, guys. Who's all here? Flat Earth. The Flat Earth Jihad Trojan Horse. P. Mars from $5,000 for Flat Earth evidence. Mr. Grimm. Big Boys Boxing. Twitwit. John Watson. Gem Panda. Gimp Handler, who looks like a Gem Panda sock account. Nice. Angel Raven 444. Charlotte, as usual, 1966 is always here. Steve Antonios. Well, it looks like we've got the usual gang. John Watson, always creeping about. YouTube. See these guys. If I wasn't so stuck with not banning people, these guys would be banned instantly. But if I ban they two, I'll probably start banning them all. So I'm glad you are here. And like I said, I've done plenty videos on these trails. And this is a weird thing as well, guys. It says like 3 years ago. Well, I found this with my videos, that certain videos say like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and they're longer. This is probably my most successful video. Roslyn Chapel, 9,400 views. But this was an interesting one, guys. I'll put it back to the start. I'll speed it up. But this is just a day looking at the sky. I set up my tripod and just watching the planes go by. And like I said before, this area here, it's plane, guys. It's actually plane, look. But that area here becomes this like remnants of trails, and this area becomes ripply. And I started thinking, are they putting ripples through the trails? But I think it's just radio waves going through the atmosphere, and you can see these radio waves on the trails. But if you watch the small screen at the bottom, guys, if I move the cursor along, you can see do you know what? I'll put up to this point where it looks like a number 7. If you watch the area where it's at this pattern effect. But that's the thing, it's like watching paint dry, guys. It's like if you stare at it, you'll not see it happening. You need to really speed it up. But like I said, if you look at this bottom screen, you can see how it just forms. And I couldn't see any chemicals or birds dropping out the sky dying or anything like that. It just, to me, it's these unusual sort of ripples in the sky, and I've seen this quite a lot in the clouds, these sort of ripples. But I kind of put it down to just all the radio waves that are kicking about the atmosphere, because everything's 3G, 4G, all these. I started thinking, is this where they keep our information? They've got the cloud. They've got the cloud. So same again, I would spend time watching these things. Spend a lot of time watching them, guys. I'm not saying chemtrails are fake because I've not got any knowledge, and I've got a group. I've still got a group. It's called Hazy Days on Facebook. But I spent a lot of time in this, and I found the same charlatans as you'd find in Flat Earth. There's that crazy kind of rippling effect. And I would take time-lapse photography as well, which I suppose it's better than that kind of footage that you just seen. But the time-lapse stuff, same again, you would see it spreading into haze, but nothing more. This was one of my first sort of time-lapse videos, guys. I even had like a doorway view. I still hadn't learned that that's a horrible way to look at videos. These are so early. Even I was calling them chemtrails at the time. This is October 2013, guys. And that's the name of my group to begin with. But I would take, this is one of my time lapse. Same again, you see that trail? That was a trail and it turned into a big cloud going over my head. You see that same Ripley effects through the trails? There we go again, the trails. And the sundogs, this haze comes from these trails, the sundogs that you see. I've took well over 100 photographs of sundogs, or chem dogs. They start calling them chem dogs in the chemtrail movement. So still outside, the vegetation is so green as well. So on one hand, they're telling you we're being sprayed, they're killing us, they're killing everything around us. But in reality, when you look outside, you see trails, but nothing's dying. And they've got all these elaborate videos of people going to UN meetings and oh, it's a massive, honestly, guys, it's a massive psyop. They've got so many different videos trying to prove that this is happening. It's elaborate. And like I said, I seen it every day. I was eyewitnessing this stuff every day. Spread word. See, I think I should even delete these videos because I'm telling people to spread the word on geoengineering. But these are so old, I just wanted to keep them. Wanted to keep them as record. That was 2013, guys, November. It's 2017 now. Also got some, oh wait, I was doing that for. Oh, did anybody see Hillbilly's Desktop? Guys, if you're a flat earther or you're a ball earther and you know political hillbilly, go see Sly Sparkane's video that shows political hillbilly's desktop. Honestly, guys, what a creepy dude. Creepy dude. I always thought he was a bit creepy anyway.
Hey, yo there, Hillbilly here. I just want to tell you I've got lots of porn on my desktop of shit that you probably shouldn't see.
Right, what else was I going to look at? You're muted. Hillbilly, you're muted.
Hey, yo there, guys. I'm Hillbilly. I just want to tell you all I'm feeding my beavers and I'm doing all kinds of stuff. I'm creeping about new hangouts with little girls.
It's another one. Hazy Days. I called it Hazy Days. I was actually using Windows Movie Maker. I had all this like free video making stuff. It's the same again, guys. I'd watched these trails. This was a persistent contrail. Most of what you see in the sky here was created by persistent contrails. Sometimes I used to wonder what the sky would be like without them. How blue the sky would be sometimes. Just see the way they change. That one just fanned out in a giant, like a big golf club. This is time lapse. This is over a period of hours and hours, people. You can see you see the way the birds are flying. Get the sun moving across the sky. How quick it looks like it's moving across the sky. So you can tell this is. I can't remember how many frames or seconds that this is. You see the haze. This kind of haze that would milk out the sky. There's another. See, certain ones wouldn't persist. Certain trails would just go by, wouldn't persist. Certain ones would persist. They would stay there. Sometimes form a nucleus. And that's what I think sometimes these things do. They form a nucleus. And that's the beginnings of a cloud, people. Once it forms its nucleus, I think the water droplets sort of attach and then build up. And then you eventually get a cloud. Or it just spreads into this haze. One thing I do know, people, they aren't spraying barium and strontium. Look at that trail. Look at these trails. And sometimes certain clouds, you could see clouds in the lower atmosphere moving like to the west, and clouds in the upper atmosphere moving north. You would, with these time-lapse videos, you would see the clouds move in different directions above your head, which was crazy. You wouldn't see with your normal naked eye just standing there staring, but with the time-lapse photography. And you can get these kind of time-lapse programs as apps. Just look for time-lapse photography app, or even your new iPhones, they come with a time-lapse setting. And it's amazing what you can see in time-lapse you would normally not notice. This was through the whole day. As you can see now, the sun's setting. The sun's setting here, so this has been through a whole day. It trails. Jed Wolf. Wolf's my... If you're wondering why I'm called Wolf there, because Wolf is my birth certificate name. So that's a new fact for you guys. Wolf. I'm a wolf. So Lee, Test Vision, Lee. Nice to see you, mate. So guys, like I said, I've done lots of observing, let's say. I used to go up the hills as well, check the environment, see if there were, because all the contrails were persisting above the hills. I thought if anything's going to be affected, it's going to be what's below it, if it's being sprayed. And no, guys, it was just a big psyop. So like I said, this video was mainly made to warn you people about the rabbit hole that is the chemtrail psyop. Remember, they're telling you that people are spraying you with barium and strontium. They're telling you that there's a mass genocide going on, and they want you to perpetuate that lies and look like a crazy person, just like the flat earth. They want you going to other conspiracies. And I noticed this too. When I was going into other conspiracies, chemtrail people were popping up, saying the powers that be are spraying us, and it just got out of hand, and I had to get out of it. But it was more on the Facebook side of things I was involved. With flat earth, now it's YouTube sort of based. Anyway, I just want to look at the chat. Thank everyone for coming. Like I said, I wasn't going to make this a long one. I was just making up for my last one because I had to delete it. I was trying to screen share, and I don't normally. That's a newbie move, that one. I'm usually quite good when it comes to all my technical stuff. So I was quite disappointed in that, and that's the reason why I deleted it. There's nothing I said in that video I regret. There's nothing in that video. The only thing I regret in that last video is I didn't properly screen share, and I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to certain things, and the fact that I didn't screen share, that was just an amateurish move. So I just thought I'd bring this one a wee quickie for all you sane people out there, if you're thinking about the chemtrail stuff, and look at it with proper logic, look at it with motivation, why they would spray us, look at the evidence of them spraying, who it is, why. There'll be patents pop up. They throw patents at you. And this is another thing that you see in Flat Earth as well. It's like patents for this, patents for that. Just because there's a patent for something, it doesn't mean it's happening or it exists. It's just on paper. It's been put away in the drawer. There's maybe something out there that's a nose picker that isn't out in the market, but maybe there's a patent for it. Maybe there's a bum wiper that someone invented and there's a patent for it. So you'll see all these patents getting thrown at you. You'll see the past, like in the past, they used Agent Orange to spray in Vietnam. And there's a lot of people that are still affected that are alive right now that have the effects of Agent Orange. They've got deformities. So there has been things in the past. But for people to say they're spraying us and themselves and they've got tablets and all this rubbish, it's, like I said, massive psyop. And same again, it got me looking at the sun. It got me learning about the magnetosphere because, like I said, I started looking at other conspiracies because of chemtrail. And one of the big conspiracies was that a coronal mass ejection was going to wipe out the electric grid of the world. The big one. And it was like 2012 that you heard all this as well. The big CME that would wipe out, because apparently it already happened in Canada and it wiped out their power grid in the 80s, I think it was. So, and I think there's been a few movies made about this whole CME hitting the earth. So I started thinking, well, is this what it is? Are they trying to create this haze to protect maybe the submarine? Because we've got a Trident nuclear submarine in Scotland. I was thinking, are they trying to protect that from radar or CME or anything that can interfere with the electronics? And it got me looking into radio wave technology, HF, RF, all these different waves, cymatics. I started looking into because of the wave patterns I could see in the clouds. Like I said, I picked up a lot of good stuff, but I realized at the end of the day, the chemtrails was a giant psyop. Right. When we look, and there's Tess, that's Lee. Nice to know your name, mate. Nice to know. There is the lovely Twitwit. You said something that I said something in chat, and maybe it was a mistype, but I've never said anything bad against you. Maybe when you said shit twit or something like that, maybe it was a misspelling. I've got nothing against you. You've always been great in chat, friendly with everyone. You're one of my best subs out there. So don't take any offence to anything I've typed by accident, because I know you've got that wee thing going on with Tim. There's Agent of Providence, Carl Stenbeck, Steve Apodaca, Jerry Cthulhu, John Watson, Charlotte 1966. There's P. Mars, Cheech is here, Lee, Test Vision. They're all here tonight. So I'm glad to see you. I'm going to make this short. And people, I've heard this a lot from people as well, ego. Tim accused me of being egotistic. And like I said before, ego's who you are, guys. There's nothing wrong with having some ego. What is wrong is when ego turns into like narcissism or arrogance. That's when ego is bad. But ego is good as a tool. You can use ego. This is why I'm here. If I never had a wee bit ego, I couldn't really put myself in front of this camera to speak to you guys. So I need a wee bit ego. Ego makes me who I am. When I think of Jed, Skeptic Media, there's a picture. And that's your ego. That's who you are. And like I said, with the chemtrail movement, there was a lot of new age thinking creeping in. And you can see it within the flat earth as well. There's a lot of sort of new agey stuff keep creeping in. And dropping your ego is another Eastern philosophy. It goes along with your meditation and letting go. And to me, it's it's against individualism. Saying to drop your ego is saying stop being an individual, stop being who you are, stop being what makes you. And I don't agree with that. I like variation. I don't want everyone meditating and dropping their egos and thinking the same. I want when I'll go into a shop, a sweet shop, I want a variation of sweets. I want all different egos, and it's fun. That's what makes life. That's what makes personalities. So this whole, and I agree, ego can be bad as well, but it's trying to balance the good part of your ego with bad sides like narcissism and getting arrogant and things like that. So I understand that side of it, but I don't think you should drop your ego altogether. I think this is just new age nonsense and it's against your individualism and your character, your person. And it's the same. Another thing that pops up with Tim as well is the whole, and it's a big discussion. It's deep, I suppose, when you think about it. It's a deep thing, but the whole morality thing. Like, I think that there's a moral law. I do. I really think there's a moral law. And when it comes to morals, I think there's just some things that are objectively wrong, bad, evil, like torturing babies for fun. I don't see any way in any lifetime, in any culture, that that could be seen as a good thing or right. The suffering of other people, the suffering of another life. You can never say it's right. And I think when they say it's subjective, this is what I think is blurring a lot of things. They're trying to say, like, even sex is subjective nowadays with its transgenderist stuff. And I heard a story about the Black Lives Matter. There was a Black Lives Matter movement down in England, in London. And one of the people at the front of the line, she was actually a white woman, and she'd put makeup on to look black. And when she was questioned about it, when she got caught, she says she was transracial. So she feels black. So it's like they're trying to make everything subjective, like race, sex, skin, like it's just everything. They're blurring the lines to me. And to me, morality is the same. It's the same with morality. Maybe you don't know, or maybe you think like committing an act is subjective, whether it's right or wrong. But it's until you see the consequence of that act or what you've done to that person, like how they feel, that maybe you realize that is a universal wrong. It doesn't matter who you do it to, what race, what time frame, you know it's wrong. And even if that doesn't make you realize that there's an objective right or wrong, the fact that the person's in misery or pain, if you don't understand that's objectively wrong, the fact that would you like it done to yourself, you've got to ask yourself that. And if you say no, well, where do you set your moral standards? It's just, and I know it's deep, and you can create crazy situations to justify certain acts like murder and things like that. When it comes down to it, it's like a natural thing that's built in us. To me, the moral law is your heart, it's your conscience, it's the Jimmy Cricket, it's the Dr. Dre and Eminem, those voices it's your when you do something wrong, there's a little voice, or you feel guilt. What's that feeling? What's that telling you that it's wrong? And to me, I think it's built in to humans. And you can see in nature sometimes when like certain animals are born, they've got this instinct. Certain animals hatch out of a shell and right away they're hunting. And it's like a memory, like an instinct that's built into them. They just know how to survive. And I think like having an objective morality is a way for humans to survive and how we progress. Because if we'd done the opposite, if we thought that morals were subjective, I think we wouldn't progress as a society or as a race or a human race. But I know it sounds, and I was misrepresented in a certain hangout being called a Christian by Tim, and I think you should take that back. But it is a deep discussion, and it might sound dogmatic to you, but like I said, to me, it doesn't matter how many times you say to me that killing babies for fun is subjective. I'm going to say no, it's not. It's objectively wrong all day long. So that's that. Anyway, guys, I hope you had a great Easter. I said in my last one that the Easter is actually, it's a celebration of the goddess Ishtar, who's the fertility goddess, and that's where eggs derive from. So I like to talk about the rabbit hole as well, that the rabbit holes tie in with the chemtrails, and the persistent contrails people don't get wrapped up in that nonsense. Anyway, hope you had a great weekend. Hope you have a good Easter Monday, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.